Hi guys, welcome back. After the weekend, I'm here because I'm trying this week to end the analysis of the final episode of Shingeki no Kyojin anime. Thank you so much for all the support throughout these long analyses. And I started telling you already that on Thursday I will not make a live streaming. So today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and then we will see maybe ourselves on Friday. In the case I didn't finish it throughout the other days. By the way, I'm here going on with the episode because last week we reached the moment in which Armin and Eren are having this huge dialogue together that is anticipating Eren's death. And basically, we were confronting Eren and Armin basically in the moment in which they were confessing their feelings. They were talking about Mikasa, and Eren had this sort of epiphany about his feelings, and it was pretty awesome. Together with the revelation of his real thoughts about Mikasa, this selfishness that was described, and even this pathetic way to appear in front of eyes. I want to move on from this moment, so let me recharge the page of the episode and then we can move on. Okay, here we go. Let's see, is the volume okay? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so here Elena was punched. Mhm, yes. Okay, we move ahead a little bit because we reached the. Yes. Mhm. Okay, so yes, actually, we reached this moment in which the beautiful color of the ocean was moving from a blue to deep red. And in fact, last time in the previous analysis, we reached this moment, and I was telling you that I would have analyzed these. Fragment more and more in the next one. Here I am. So I want to say this first: the fact that this dream, this pure dream, is moving to a contaminated nightmare is pretty evident. I mean, this dream that Armin and Eren cultivated together throughout the years, then this dream, when they are approaching the ocean, turns into a nightmare. And in fact, even the crystal clear color of the ocean that turns into a deep red tone of color that represents the blood that was spreaded not only to reach this dream, because we know that throughout the years, even in the previous seasons, we so that this dream was causing lots of sacrifices, lots of people's death in vain for a certain period of time. They thought that everything was done in vain, but later, after in this episode, we understand that also their cooperation to reach this goal to save humanity mattered quite a lot. But yeah, this dream that is causing so much losses throughout the seasons, and even so, this blood is not. Yeah, I mean, this is my opinion as always, but this blood doesn't refer. Um, just to the rumbling moment, but let's say that in order to reach the goal, but even to try to do something even more terrible, like the rumbling, caused this water to turn into deep red. Um, And of course, I want to put even the blood of all the people who were transformed into these non-intelligent titan against their will. And so these blood that you see, I think it refers not only to the lack of humanity that it's represented by the rumbling itself, but even to um, these lack of humanity in general, because throughout the seasons we saw that so many people lacked of humanity, so many people started to kill other people. So where is the humanity right now? There is not a lot of a percentage of it, unfortunately, but Armin is supposed to bring everything back as normal. I mean, as soon as possible, but as normal as possible. Armin and all the others for sure, but let's say that Armin has a dialectics that let other people listen to him. So I think that he was chose also for these things, because he has a way of speaking that he has this ability, yeah, that lets other people hear him. So I think that Armin was chosen for multiple characteristics. But let's say that he is inside this ocean of blood too, because of all the people he killed throughout his explosions. Let's remind ourselves the Liberius attack, in which while he transformed, many people lost their lives. So we also need to remember the fact that even Armin feels guilty, has always felt guilty for what he has done. Let's talk about Samuel. I mean, these two friends that lost their lives because of his decision. Together with Connie to end their lives. Um, and let's talk about even in season 3 part 1. Do you remember when for the first time Armin is in front of the idea to kill other people instead of only killing titans? So um, let's say that these thing, I mean, this idea of keep killing people doesn't start from the final season, but it's starting from the third season, let's say, the moment in which there is this coup d'etat inside the paradise, and he is understanding that in order to move forward with what they believe in, they have to do something pretty terrible. I remember the moments in season 3 part 1 where Armin feels speechless, and he feels even terrorized of what they are trying to do. And it's his first time to approach this idea to become a murderer, while in the past they were considering this idea of killing the titans as something great, because there were titans versus humans. But even as soon as they are recognizing that titans are human beings, actually, yeah, I think that from that moment, Armin and all the others understand that they can't be considered as saints, but they are considered as murderers too. The level between Eren and Armin is quite different, because, of course, the proportion of this destruction can't be compared. But as much as I was telling you many times, it doesn't matter if you kill one person or if you kill 10 people. Anyway, you kill. So we can't judge a murderer based on how many victims he makes. Let's say that everyone is a murderer in the case he or she is killing someone. So the number, from my perspective, is quite relevant, irrelevant. Because even that life, if even one life matters to me. So if you kill one person, you are already condemned from my perspective. So of course, in the case of Eren, he made a damage that is countless, and for sure he has more guilt than Armin, but at the end of the day, the source is the same. That is guilt, and there's no way that I can excuse both of them. Even if Armin made what he made to try to save Eren and bring him back, like in the case of the Liberius attack, but. We can say the same thing for Eren at this point, where he's trying to save his friends, but in the meantime, he's killing people. Um, as soon as Armin is understanding what Eren says, we need to remember that when he has this memory, that he recollects it now that Eren is dead, Armin still had to approach the rambling for real. In fact, later you will discover when Armin had that vision, when Armin collected this memory that is happening in the moment in which he is talking to Annie, and they still they're still trying to reach the place in which they are going to use this flying boat properly, etc., etc. So it's happening even before they take this flying boat, even before there is a flock appearing, and he's trying to shoot um, against this flying boat. So this moment is definitely happening before even Armin can see the rumbling in action. So he didn't even know the number, the estimation of the proportion of this damage. So that's why when Eren is saying I trembled, I mean I rumbled 80% of humanity, Armin is completely shocked, and he can't refrain himself from shouting or scolding him about his decisions, about what he has done to most of the Earth population. But yeah, these red tone of color that you can see in this fragment of this dialogue, yeah, I told you this already. This quietly reminds me of the rebuild of Evangelion, because even in Evangelion, there is this sort of criticism to um, people. I mean, this criticism to this lack of humanity that takes you uh, to a certain point in which you make some sort of actions that you don't even understand at the beginning, and later you can feel the guilt, you can feel the regret of what you have tried to do. The result of these convictions that are bringing humanity to a collapse, and even this criticism to the lack of humanity that we saw even between Gendo, that is Shinji's father, with I mean towards his son, that is as I was telling you, Shinji. So I think that, yeah, even if the contexts are a little bit different, this criticism to this lack of humanity that takes you to a point in which what you want is more important than what's moral and ethically true and good to do, um, is referred even is commented even in this story. And I think that even this contrast between the blue sky and the red, bloodish ocean that you see here is exactly what I was telling you even in previous analysis. That is the contrast between heaven and hell, or even the contrast between these illusion that freedom means something like this, that is represented by this blue and clear sky, with this bloodish tone of red that stands for the extermination, or let's say what you can't see, and you can see these kind of things later. That refers to guilt, the regrets, and everything that happened. And yeah, even in this case, I think Eren, by coexisting through time, as much as I told you many, many times, even in this dialogue with Armin, he's understanding later um, what how his words were put into actions. I mean, one thing is to say, I wanted to exterminate all of them, and one thing is to do it and to see the consequence of your words. So I think that Eren was pretty convinced, as we all know, about what to do, and these convictions were trapping him into a sort of a cage that couldn't let him think properly, based on the confusion, based on the of coexisting over time, etc., etc. But I also think that uh, he was also, let's say, blind about the consequences of what happened. Um, once one thing is to try to start the rumbling and try to show everyone how powerful you became and how you think you are almighty to choose about other people's lives, and on the other hand is to see the result of everything you have done. I think these two things are quite different, and you can't put them on the same level. So that's why even the clearness of the sky represents absolutely the clearness of mind in the moment in which he is confronting Armin. So there, as you can notice, here there is just this little smoke in the distance, but it's not the same smoke that he could have seen in the moment in which he's saying, "Ah, this is freedom." So at that time, there was not. The evidence in front of his eyes, but I think all this blood that is surrounding Eren in this moment, and even these creepy but at the same time amazing scene in which he's collecting. I mean, he's grabbing some hair and some teeth from all these dead people, makes you understand how Eren in that moment is facing what the result of what he did. And in order to do this, you need rationality. You need these moment of clearness of mind in which you are realizing the effects of these power and how these power turned you into something that, um, as I told you many times, something you became and not something you were. When Eren was stating that he has always been like this, I don't get it. I mean, I don't believe it. I don't understand, and I don't agree with him when he says something like this. Let's say that he matured some experiences in the wrong way, and all these negative experiences took him based on his instinct to become how he became. That is something totally different. I can see even Eren's eyes that we couldn't see for a long time, and these eyes are reflecting these consciousness of the, I mean, consciousness that is confronting these effects of these huge power, and the only person who could help him understanding everything that he has done was Armin, because Armin in this story is representing the rationality, is representing reason, the use of reason, while Eren is the total opposite. I mean, he has always represented instinct, and these huge contrast um, is also colliding with the fact that they are best friends. I like these symbolism, because at the end of the day, instinct and rationality, they can't stand each other. I mean, they are two opposites, but they coexist in all of us. So we can't deny the presence of one of the others. So it's like as if they are friends, even if they are quite opposite. I like this vision of things, but it's always a rationality that shakes you and brings you back to reality. And that's what's happening with Eren, because throughout the final season, you could see a dark vision of Eren. In fact, when he was even in Liberio for 4 years, you could see how creepy he became and how he was living throughout this solitude, because he was spending all this time by himself. And Armin couldn't help him in these 4 years where he rebelled and he decided to start his plan by himself. So Armin was not there for 4 years, the same amount of time that Armin was living on the other side of. I mean, in paradise of the ocean, and as you could see, while Armin was not there, trying to help Eren to find a sort of um, a rationality about what he was doing, then all collapsed. I mean, Eren was not um, listening to anybody, was not confronting anybody of his friends. He absolutely preferred to stay by himself because maybe he knew that if Armin was coming together with him to Liberio to spend together with him 4 years, things would have gone completely different. But that's why he needed to stay by himself, alone in a circumstance in which everything could have made him even more convinced about what to do. If Armin would have been there together with Eren in those 4 years time skip, I think that Armin would have stopped him for sure. So there was the risk that Armin would have stayed together with him and as much as all the others to try to convince him of the contrary. But Eren did that on purpose because he knew that if he was by himself, these convictions would have prevailed. If his friends would have come together with him, I'm sure that the story would have been different and he would have tried to be stopped. That's something that he can't admit. So, even in this case, he was not stopped at all. Even if they tried, at the end of the day, Eren couldn't admit. To be stopped as for the rumbling to start it to try to exterminate etc etc, I mean the people from the other side um, of the ocean. So I think that mm, for Eren, the detachment was necessary. He had to detach himself from everyone that was dear to him. Otherwise, even this creepiness, even this darkness, was not possible to believed and even to be um, comprehended in order to go on with his plan. But by the way, now on the other hand, when Armin is recollecting these memories, Eren is already dead. So he can't have the chance to change anything. And in fact, even when Armin was um, understanding Eren's emotions when Eren is saying, "I don't want to die. I would like to live all together with all of you." This was happening in the moment in which Armin is meeting Eren. That means a moment in which Eren started the rumbling but didn't committed all those crimes. Even if later he says, I can't because I exterminated 80% of humanity, the reason why he's saying this is because he's coexisting through time and he was already seeing the effects of the rumbling. And that's why he said that he can't change anything because Armin asked him, okay, at this point, if you want to leave and if you want to spend time with us, we can try to find a way to to stop all these. And this ingenuity of Armin makes you understand that Armin didn't even know what was happening next, even if Armin is connected through the paths. But in that moment, there was no way that Armin could have understood the proportion of this extermination. But for Eren, it was something already obvious, not only because when Armin will be able to recollect these memories, Eren is already dead. So Eren didn't let Armin interfere till the end of all this project, about this project. But at the same time, Eren doesn't want to have other people interfere, as I told you, but at the same time, Eren. Um, there was a contrast, let's say, of the personality in which he's expressing his will of not dying and his will to leave them all behind, um, and to go to experience afterlife. That makes you understand that his inner core of feelings doesn't necessarily correspond to how he became. One thing is how you are brainwashed by your own convictions, and by the instinct that makes you feel angrier and angrier based on your previous memories that are feeding this anger of yours. And one thing is the inner core of your thoughts. That means what you really have hoped to do, even if those convictions didn't let you do what you really wanted to do. Um, I think that for some people these might seem incoherent, and it is definitely. But psychologically speaking, sometimes what we wanted to do doesn't correspond with what we are saying, and doesn't correspond to what instinctively we are saying. I gave you multiple examples throughout these previous analysis moments, and in which I was telling you that even when we are angry, we are saying things that actually later we regret that we have said. And in that moment, the words that we were saying mattered more than the inner core of our real thoughts, in which we were just trying maybe to defend ourselves, and that's why we used those angry words. Maybe we were feeling so fragile that the only thing to do was to use heavy sentences, strong sentences, that at the end of the day, when you calm down and you realize that in that moment you were angry, you feel guilty or you feel regretful, or maybe you're saying, it's better if I say sorry of what I said, because it doesn't correspond with what I was thinking, or I was too pathetic to go against yourself, because in that moment I was angry and I was not controlling my feelings. Yeah, I think Eren is experiencing exactly the same. I mean, his real thoughts are, oh, I don't want to die, I want to just spend time with my friends, but at the same time I know what happened in the past. I know that my mother was eaten like that. I know that I lost lots of comrades. I know that it's all their fault. So, see, the more you feed this anger, that is the same thing that Eren tried to do with his father, too. He was feeding the anger of the memories of Grisha, and the more he was inciting Grisha to perpetrate his goal to exterminate the race family, the more Grisha, you saw that his inner and previous thoughts, no, I am a doctor, I can't kill kids, etc., etc. I was supposed to cure people instead of exterminate them. I mean, instead of kill them. The more Eren was inciting, I mean, he was trying to brainwash him with these memories that caused him lots of pain, the more Grisha lost his mind. I think that everything happened to Eren too, because even if Eren was thinking that he was convincing others, and he could have had a clear mind, a clear and strategical and whatever mind to do these kind of things on others, he was also a victim of his self convictions. So As you could see, when you are convinced to be powerful, but then you discover that you are also a victim of this power too. Let's say that the victory here goes to this power and not to Eren, who tried, or who he thought that he was handling this power properly. Let's say that what's something bigger than you makes you think at the beginning that you can handle these, but then you discover that you are limitful, and this power has not limits. It's limitless. So when limitlessness and limitfulness are matching, you understand that there's something wrong, that one can't coexist with the other. And that was Eren's big mistake. I think that he didn't count the damage of the result. And that's why later I liked the moment in which um, Eren and Armin had the occasion to meet, so that he could understand what was missing, what couldn't help him to see things in a different way. And I really, really liked this dialogue, because I think that before dying, you have some moments, some seconds, or some minutes. It depends on how you live these things. Those minutes can last more somehow, and for some other people, they are just a few minutes. Um, but before dying, you are realizing the things that before they were not even probable to be thought. And that's why I'm saying it's a hard to see this point of view, because we have always thought that Eren was completely sure, that Eren couldn't think in a different way, that Eren was moving forward. But all these kind of things are based on his convictions. But these convictions were too strong, that couldn't help Eren to see some other options, some other ways to solve all these things. On the other hand, I have to say that this stubbornness of Eren was working somehow, because throughout his sacrifice, and we don't have to forget these, because at the end of the day, it is a sacrifice. I mean, it was a sacrifice even from the moment in which he was trying to convince his friends of the contrary. I mean, when he was trying to convince his friends that he became evil suddenly, that he wanted his friends to hate him, etc., etc. So that's already a sort of human sacrifice that he had to make, his own sacrifice. But let's say that this sacrifice somehow worked, because the main one of the main goals that he had to reach was to be able to defeat these titans power, to defeat this chain of events that was repeating throughout the generations. And that's why I want to say this. Even if later the world will not change, because there will be other wars against the paradise, because this cycle of pain will not end, but there is a one more internal circle or cycle of events that was interrupted instead. I'm talking about Ymir and these sort of curse based on the Titan's power. Yeah, even if the world in general didn't change, and throughout the times even after Eren's death, things are repeating in a similar but at the same time different way. I think that their story, I mean, um, the events that were um, causing or affecting their lives changed on the other side, because you see that this Titan's power is gone. And when we say, oh no, maybe it's not completely gone because we saw the scene of the boy and the dog, but we will analyze the options that I found based on that scene later. But I'm just saying the fact that these Titans' power is over and they will not. I'm talking about their story and not the history. I'm talking about their story. We know that after Eren's death, this Titan's power it will not be um, transmitted from the previous Titan owners to Historia's, maybe Historia's daughter or other kids who will perpetrate these sort of slavery based on this power. So basically what I'm trying to say is that even if history is not changing based on these principles that regard humanity or human beings, and how human beings are. On the other side, their story, based even on Eren's sacrifice, can have a sort of a happy ending because these Titans' power in their story is over. I'm not saying that maybe these Titan power can't get in touch with others later. I'm talking about the characters we all know. For their story, this is over. So there is the sun coming out after a huge tempest that was going ahead 2,000 years. And even some of the previous characters that are dead can finally rest in peace. So that's why I'm calling it a happy ending for these reasons that I told you. Of course, on the other hand, we see that these sort of hate that the rest of the world is having against the paradise will not be erased, because later other kind of wars with different weaponry will go ahead. So that's why I'm saying that for some reasons what happened was taking to something good, and for some other reasons it took all the characters for something happening later that creates other problems. Even if I think that their lives will be long, as Eren said, and in fact we saw it even in the post-credit scenes. So I don't think that throughout those years they were living, wars were happening, and that's why I'm saying that for their story there was a sort of a happy ending, even if Armin and all the others had to struggle to create this sort of diplomacy between these two sides of the world. But on the other side, you see that thanks to Eren's sacrifice, this opportunity was given. Um, Even if later, when all of these characters little by little are getting older and the years are passing and the future is coming, you see that this peace couldn't last forever, and that's quite realistic, because even in our days, even in our, I mean, in our daily life, we see that there isn't peace lasting forever. We can talk about even wars that happened centuries ago, in which you see that there are wars, then there is a peace period of time, and then wars are happening again. So it's impossible to create a peace forever, because of how individuals are different. and with the different opinions, there are debating moments. I mean, there are debates, and then from these debates, everything can collapse and create another war. Um, it's hard that the entire world can communicate in the same way, can understand everything in the same way, because of the differences of culture, because of differences of places in which these countries are settled, etc. I mean, there are lots of reasons why we will never be able to find a total peace in this world as much as in the world of Shingeki no Kyojin. So that's why I believe that these stories are quite coherent. There should be there should have always been someone who tried its best to solve things or to um, talk with diplomacy as much as Armin would like to do. But it's not a guarantee. I mean, this doesn't guarantee that these people will be heard because of other people's ideas, other people's beliefs. But anyway, the will of a trying that never fades away. This is the most important thing. Unfortunately, we can't say that diplomacy is always the one and only way. If this would have happened, of course, we would have all felt so great, right? But by the fact that we are all different and we can't be completely um, manipulated, so we think all the same. The problem is that things will never go in the way we hope. And even if for some years everything is lasting good and everything is seems to be so peaceful, now on the other hand, you understand that nothing can last forever. As much as our life can't last forever, even these peaceful moments can't last forever. I say unfortunately. Hi, General. Hello. I say. Um, I say unfortunately because even if on one hand I don't promote people who always think the same. I mean, I don't like when all people of the world think all the same. On the other hand, I am aware of the fact that this thing, the fact that we are all different, can cause troubles in the world. Um, to be honest with you, I don't think about utopistic ways of seeing things. I don't believe that wars will end in this world. Not because I am a pessimistic, but because you see that sometimes wars are promoted not by common people, because the common people are really tired of the environment they live, but because of people ruling on common people that are choosing for common people without even asking common people if they agree or not, to promote the wars, because wars anyway stands for business. So um, these powerful people who thanks to business wanted to promote wars. It's really hard that all these kind of things will end until there are protests, until there are people who are trying to stand for what they really believe. And actually, in this recent period of time, things like these are happening. There are lots of protests against the wars that are being handled in these recent years. There are people who are trying to rebel to everything that is happening. So um, the problem is not the people who live a common and the real life. The problem comes from the people on top of these people who are um, creating all these troubles in the world. And at the end of the day, we common people are the victims of everything. We common people are dying because of them. We common people are passive in front of these decisions, even if, yes, I said recently, um, people from all over the world are becoming pretty active about expressing their ideas, and I truly like these. But at the end of the day, the core of the problem is not we as a common people, that everyday life, we have a usual routine or schedule about what to do every day, etc., etc. I'm pretty sure that if it was for common people, wars are not happening, but we are not deciding for real, and that's why I'm saying that we are passively living the context, I mean, the environment we are living. But yeah, I don't believe, yes, in this utopistic way of thinking that one day everyone will understand the other and there will be peace forever. If you think so, I'm happy for you. I mean, I'm happy that you have this positive vision that helps you go on. Even even I have this positive way of seeing life, in which I hope that one day the world will change and we will not be controlled by others, but we will be somehow free to stand for our rights and stand for what we really believe without being stopped by the people, by those people on top that are creating wars and wars and wars. I really hope that it's happening, but I also don't believe that wars will end. On the contrary, let's see. If these kind of things are happening, I'm just happy for that. But now, after all these huge digression that I made, I go back to the episode so we can have the chance to move on. Yes. Yes, there is this smoke, but as you can see, everything is becoming clearer and clearer. So Armin is seeing the result of the rumbling. I really like this scenario, even if it's pretty dark, no matter how the sky is clean. Um, but I like it because you need to reach a moment in which you face what you have done, and to take responsibility of what you have done. And this is the moment. I attempt a complete eradication of humanity outside of the walls. But did you see the face that he's making while he's saying this sentence? It's like as if he's going back to how he was before, when he was having this expression instead of this facial expression that he had when he said, "I don't want to die. I want Mikasa to stay next to me forever. That she thinks about me forever, etc., etc." Now, when he is talking about this extermination that he provoked, his eyes are going back as if he doesn't care, that he he did what he did, etc., etc., as if there is this contrast of a personality. Look, to me, Eren in this moment seemed bipolar. I mean, at a certain point, you see Eren that he's opening his eyes in front of Armin, and you can recognize somehow the Eren that we left in the previous seasons. Before touching his story as a hand, and immediately after, when he is explaining this disaster that he created, he goes back to those eyes as if he's passively narrating what he did. and all of you stop me. And ultimately, 80% die. So not only Eren is saying, wait a second that I find that sentence again. Just a second. Yes. And all of you stop me. I mean, this is, of course, based on his vision from the future. Coexisting through time, he already has a vision of what will happen. And in this case, you see already, as I was telling you, the contrast of the attitude. Eren is already um, hopeless because he knows how things will go. And on the other side is Armin. There's Armin who is approaching to a reality that, in his case, will happen because. Armin is having this vision when later you see that he still has to talk together with Annie. But of course, his memories were erased because if he knew, if he could remember this dialogue, things would have gone differently. And that's why Eren prevented this from happening because he kept being sure of his ideals. And that's why he didn't want anyone to stop him in that way. I mean, from this point of view, even if later he is stopped, but the damage is done already. I mean, even if 20% of humanity survives. We don't have to forget that in between, I mean, inside these 20% of people, there are people who have lost other dear people. They will mature revenge, they will mature this will to avenge the people who died because of Eren. So that's why somehow the cycle of events will not stop forever. I mean, throughout the years and throughout the diplomacy through years, Armin and all the others made evident this sort of collaboration between the two sides of the world. But later on, I think that these revengeful thoughts were matured, that you couldn't stop all these from happening. So new wars were happening later. But yeah, we needed to remember that between all these people who survived, there are people who lost their people. So that's why I'm saying that this cycle of revenge can't be stopped so easily, even if Armin did his best together with all the others to save that 20%. See the face that Eren has when he's talking here. His face is like this, as if, of course, you can't change anything because actually that's what happened. Even if this dialogue is happening before, the result was exactly how it went. That means 80% of the people were exterminated, while 20% were saved by Armin and all the others. But anyway, these can't cancel, these can't erase the fact that 80% of the people died. So, they did something good because they tried to save humanity. They could save what they could save, but this doesn't erase what it was lost. No, the world outside the walls drops to the same level of civilization as a paradise. Wow. I mean, so you definitely understand what Eren's intention was to make, I mean, to create something equal because he thought that these, that the proportion of the population of a paradise and the proportion of the population of the rest of the world was an injustice, was something unfair. And the result is that what he tries to do, even if he is doing this in a wrong way, is to not only erase everything, that means make all these thing flat, because that's how the rumbling works, right? To level things up. But in this case, we understand that now the outside world population is the same as for numbers, the same as the paradise population. Um, this is pretty ridiculous, but that's how Eren uh, is. I mean, that's how Eren wants to be represented, has to be, no wants, has to be represented as a person that spreads incoherence, because as much as he was fighting for his losses, and now later probably there will be people who will fight for um, their losses, as much as he was fighting for his losses. But in the case of Eren, Eren prefers to think that his losses are more important than other people's losses, based on the selfishness, based on the priority of the feelings that we put in our heart, and we judge reality based on our feelings, based on how we feel, based on our experiences, based on the priority that we mm, make. So that's why human beings are selfish, because we see reality based on how we feel, or based on what we see. And this is pretty presumptuous, right? Many times we pay attention on our pain without thinking that even other people can feel pain, right? Or we think that our pain is bigger than other people's pain because we are feeling it. So we think that no one else can feel the same pain, or we feel that our pain is more important than the others. So this is selfishness, of course. This makes you understand that what Eren is doing is exactly the same. He is creating a sort of a priority in his list, and on the number one of this list there is his friends, his people, etc., etc., and then all the rest can happen. I mean, all the rest can come. Even how he felt creating this revenge had a priority in his heart, rather than thinking that the effects of what he has done is exactly compared to the pain of all of these 20% of people left, who lost dear people as much as he lost dear people because of other people's choices. So at the end of the day, Eren, throughout all this time, didn't learn anything. And that's why it has to be represented like this. I mean, this character is so great because of this. Because if he had learned from his experience without being confused by these mere instinct and mere um, point of view, because this point of view derives from this anger. I mean, if he didn't listen anger, but he listened to um, what caused for him this pain in order to not recreate the same pain on others. I open a bracket, and this is for some people so utopistic, because if I put myself in Eren's point of view, of course, if my mother is killed in front of my eyes, the first thing that I'm thinking is now I'm going to let you have the same experience. That is more or less what Eren says. That means if you take freedom away from me, then I'm going to take freedom away from you to repay you for the things that you have done. I don't know. I mean, fortunately, I have never experienced what Eren experienced. Unfortunately, I have never experienced a crime inside my family, so I don't know how it feels. I can try to imagine this, but I don't know, and I don't want to know. Sincerely, I mean, I hope that this will never happen to me. But I am thinking, if someone kills my mother, my father, I can't expect to be kind. I can't expect to think properly in that moment that is happening. And of course, Eren had that instinctual vision of things in the moment after everything like this happened. But the problem was that this instinct that he had in that moment went on for years, and he couldn't eradicate from his mind that thought. He couldn't make these thoughts more mature and think, especially after years, that things could have changed in his mind. He didn't put this option in his list of options. Even in real life, there are people who say, "No, look, I will never forgive that person that killed my dear person." Absolutely no. And I think that I would react the same. I mean, I would have reacted the exact same way. I don't know if after years I can forgive the person that killed the person that caused me lots of pain. So, if on one hand I am condemning Eren because, based on what happened to him, he decided to repay what happened to him 10 times more, but even a 10, no, 100 times more, or 1,000 times more. On the other hand, I can try to understand how he felt in that moment. And how he understands the fact that he doesn't want to forgive these people because what they did caused him his end as a person that had a previous environment, and then later, immediately after, he found himself in another kind of an environment that he didn't want to live. So even what happened to him not only was creating convictions and was creating this state of mind that was impossible to be erased, but also he felt that someone else was creating for him an environment that he didn't want to experience. And that's why he felt caged double, caged by the way in which he reacted immediately after, and caged because someone else that day decided to put him inside of this cage, inside of this new environment that he didn't want to experience. I mean, the trauma that he experienced after his mother died and everything that happened even later was a cause of that environment that was created by others because these walls were broken by others. All of the peaceful moments that were happening were distorted and were destroyed forever. So the new reality that Eren was living was not decided by him to be lived, but it was influenced by other people's actions and choices. And that's why I'm saying that Eren felt confined in this double cage. See, which means that there won't be a one-sided war of a reprisal. But this conflict doesn't end. For sure, it doesn't end because these 80% of the people, sorry, that died, caused these 20% of the people survived to feel angry towards the paradise again. So that's why there's no end in that way. But there is an end of these titans' power that were these weapons used to spread terror. Of course, later after you see that if even if the titan's power is over, those people who wanted to create other wars and they respond to these wars are creating other weapons to be used, more advanced weapons to be used to reconfirm what they believed. So as I told you, even if the wars will not end, that kind of war with the Titans ends. It's like a period of time that is ending, but doesn't exclude all the other periods of the future to happen. That should be quite obvious. I don't think Eren did everything that he did because he thought that later peace would have lasted forever. If he thought something like this, he's even more stupid. Okay, but I don't think so because he saw from the future what will happen later, and in fact, he is confirming now to Armin too that this conflict doesn't end because later he saw other things after his death that are telling him that these things will go ahead more and more and more. So, for Armin to hear all of these things is a failure. I mean, it represents absolutely the failure of his ideals, the failure of his plan that was to save as much as humanity as possible. And it's a complete failure also to hear that not only Eren created this damage, but in the future, this damage will perpetrate in other ways, but it will be perpetrated. So, um, nothing actually is changing it. Let's say that what the changes is just the way that things are done, but the core of things is that is not changing at all. The core of the problem is not the changing at all. Hey, Armin is saying, what do you mean? Are you trying to say that what we have done is all pointless? But actually, yes, Armin. Um, of course, it's pointless. Of course. As soon as Eren started the rumbling, and at that time when Armin was having this vision, the rumbling started. It was already an anticipation of a failure. That everything that they have done is pointless because as soon as Eren is starting the rumbling, and maybe he's just terminating even the 10th the 10% of this entire population, it's already a failure, because even if he's terminated the 10% instead of 80, that 10% was dying, and the 90% of the people surviving, they would have tried their best to have their revenge anyway, because 10% of the entire population was dying. So it's chained it's a chain of events that can be interrupted in the moment in which there are no more conflicts, and these two sides of the world, they can coexist because there is enough space for everyone in the world. But as soon as these conflicts keep going, there's no way that the conflicts themselves will end, because a conflict makes another conflict, and then there is the conflict of the conflict of the conflict. It's a chain. See, because Armin is still convinced of this thing, of course, based on the moment he's having this vision. The massacre hasn't occurred yet. Just stop it. He really believes this, but Heren has already been killed, and Eren is talking based on what he has already seen. So this thing already happened. I can't. Eren one more time says, I can't. So even this impotent facial expression of Eren in front of a reality that already happened. And on the other hand, you see a desperate friend that lost the trust in you, and even lost the respect that he has about you. And for Eren is a double knife in the stomach, let's say, because not only he has done what he had done, and he has to leave, sorry, the responsibility to his friends now, because once he dies, now his friends have to try to repair to all the damage. I mean, not only he leaves the responsibility to others, and he is not being able to take his responsibility because he dies, but he is also seeing how disappointed his friend is to understand what he did. I think that for Eren this is a double pain, because I think he has always wanted that his friends feel proud of him, and they feel all the same, right? But to see that the disappointment, and that this I don't know how, yes, how disappointed Armin feels right now, for Eren is even more painful, sincerely, because maybe he thought, or he expected, that Armin would have understood him more, but Armin can't understand him, because even if on one hand he also killed the people, and later we are going to talk about this and how Armin understands Eren in this way, but Armin can't understand, or can't admit, that Eren decided to be so presumptuous to believe that his pain is greater than others, at a point that he can create what he created, that is the rambling. 20% of humanity is all you manage to save. So this is undeniable. I mean, something like this can't be different. Sorry that I cleaned my nose for a second. So 20% of people is what you can save from all humanity that you hope to save. So even the fact that Armin, unconsciously speaking, knew, without recollecting his memories, no matter how much he tried, he would have saved only 20% of people. I mean, you see how Armin is struggling to help humanity as much as he can, and he doesn't even know, as a paradox, that Eren already gave him the answer about the amount, the number of people he could have saved. It's like as what I told you before when I was saying that when we make a choice, are we sure that our choice is not pre-written already? And maybe we think that we can change things while everything is already written. I mean, we maybe think presumptuously speaking, that we can change things based on our choice. I mean, we think that we are powerful enough to have a power, free will, to choose between the two or more multiple choices to choose something. And when we choose something, we always say, I chose it, so I made that decision. And that's why nobody could interfere with this decision. Yeah, sometimes we are convinced of that, but are we sure that what we chose was already predestined and it's just a result of what the regulation of the universe already chose for us? There are people who believe so, and people who believe absolutely the fact that when they choose something is because they want to choose that thing, and they can change the course of events based on their decision. In this case, what happened to Armin, it's something that is already written, something that no matter how much he tries to do the impossible, that's the result, and that result can't be changed. It's already been determined, yes. And Alvin is speechless because he says being determined. That means that everything that we have done leaded us to the destiny that was already written by something else. And everything we have done so far was just were just events that were going on because everything was written already, and we didn't choose anything, but we were just writing exactly things as they were already written. This is scary if you think about it. I mean, when you think that you're doing something and you believe that something is done because of your choices, because you think that is something that you really will, but at the end of the day you discover that it's something that had to be done in order to reach that goal that is common for everyone. This is scary. Based on our lives, are we doing some things because it's already predetermined? If that's the case, it's scary. But at the same time, not only it's scary, but it's also making us understand how powerless we are in the case that this is happening. Didn't you determine it? Didn't you kill them? These two questions are pretty powerful to me because Armin at this point is thinking, I thought, Eren, that you determine these consequences, that is the rumbling. I thought that you wanted to kill these people and nothing was interfering with uh, your will, your choice that you made. Armin is convinced that he did everything to reach this goal. That he is the culprit, that he um, is doing everything. Okay, so Eren is saying so many times I tried to change all these, but nothing happened to let me be able to change anything. So as an answer of what Armin is saying now makes you understand that Eren tried to change things. And this means that there is something else that is ruling on them to let this story go as it has to go. Can you call it destiny? Maybe. The unfortunate thing that Eren experienced is that he could see the future. If we put ourselves in Eren's position, if I can see the future already, and I know already what's happening, it's like as if life is putting yourself in front of lots of spoilers. Then you try to modify these spoilers to see if what you have seen is correct or not, and if and to see if these things are changing. But then you discover that it's not changing. So Eren had the unfortunate problem to see his life spoiled already. That's the problem. Because if he didn't have the Shingeki no Kyojin power and he couldn't gain or release this power of time coexisting, Eren would have lived his life, and everyone would have believed that he caused everything, etc., etc. On one hand, I think that in the moment he chose to start the rambling, he chose. Okay, so even if we can give the guilt to this other thing that is controlling the story that is already written, but on the other side, I think that if Eren didn't see the future, probably he would have started the rambling anyway. So I don't think that Eren is just a victim of this thing ruling the story that is already pre-written. Call it destiny or whatever. I think that he chose to start the rambling, so he is guilty for sure. We can't now say, "Oh, Eren, poor Eren," because he was um, a victim of destiny. No, because anyway, he made his choice, and he also wanted Armin to not to remember what happens until his death. So he had the power to eliminate these memories. So if he really didn't want to do what he did, he would have helped Armin to remember these things early, and Armin and all the others could have done some other things to prevent, to try to stop him, or to prevent this rambling from happening, or this rambling to destroy all these people's lives. So that's why I'm saying that I can't consider Eren as a victim. If on one hand I can consider Eren as a victim of his convictions and a victim of his instinct that was feeded by his anger, etc., etc., etc. On the other side, I don't want to consider him as a victim, and that's it. Because if he was a real victim, he would have tried his best to stop the rambling, but he didn't want to stop the rambling. The rambling was stopped by his friends. And yes, maybe he didn't want to stop the rambling and play the role of the mean person, so his friends would have shine in all this. Yes, this is definitely what also happened. But there was no need to exterminate 80% of the people to do so. Even if he exterminated 10% of people, he was condemned anyway because of the things that I told you before. But yes, there was no need for him to exterminate 80% of the people to let his friends shine. Even if he exterminated 10% of people, his friends could have shined to let 90% of humanity to survive. The fact that he wants to eradicate everything to eradicate 100, almost 100%, no, 100% of the other side of the ocean, makes you understand that Eren is not a victim. That now he can't say, oh, that the thing caused me to do so. I tried to change many times, but I couldn't. Look, your friends already told you that there was a way to try to stop all these, and your friends could have given you many different options, but you didn't want to listen. So if a person doesn't want to listen because he feels trapped by his own feelings, etc., etc., yes, he is convinced, he is influenced by these thoughts, but at the same time, he could have listened more. So now we can't say, oh, my dear Eren, poor Eren, he was trying his best. Just for the fact that he tried to change this story many times without involving even these dear people of his. That's creepy because if you think about it, he tried to change this story many times, and at the same time, he didn't want to involve his friends. But then he says that his friends are the most important things. And anyway, he doesn't want to listen to his friends because he's stubborn and he wants to decide by himself. Maybe he tried to change the story so he didn't want to involve his friends to make them feel afraid of all that was happening. Okay, but at the same time, if you try one time and you can't change things, if you try a second time and you can't change things, anyway, while trying, you are risking that your friends are not going to survive. He is also saying it. I didn't even know if you could have survived in all this, but I tried to move forward. So, if on one hand he makes you believe that he cares about his friends, to let them shine as saviors of humanity, he wants to save them so that they can have a long life, etc., etc. But the way he keeps trying is putting his own friends in front of a risk that they can't survive. So even this presumptuous attitude that he has, that he tries to change things without even involving others and ask their opinions because maybe they could have given him a different option that he couldn't even believe or he couldn't even think. We can't consider Eren as a victim. No, I mean, yes, he is a victim of his own ideals, but the fact that you say that Eren is a victim, no, 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 he is not. And that's why, yes, he was condemned to his destiny, but there was absolutely no need to exterminate 80% or what his real intention was. That means 100% of those people. There was no need. Absolutely no. No. Things always occurred exactly as I saw in my memories of the future. But okay, if you say something like this, were you trying to change the story because you don't think what you have done, or because you have tried to um, find a way to? I mean, Aaron, you do what you do because you wanted to save your friends, and it means you try to change the story so much, so you are avoiding that Paradise is attacked, or you try to change this story so many times so you don't exterminate that amount of a population, because this is pretty incoherent. See, this character is incoherent, completely incoherent. On one side, he wants to protect his friends, so he wants to have his revenge even for his past experiences that other people caused him. But then he's trying to rewrite the story so that these 80% of people are not rumbled. He tried many times, but the story repeated so many times, so he englobed even all the pain that he felt to rewrite the story many times, etc., etc., etc. Eren, what do you want to do? I mean, because when you read these sentences come after Armin is asking him, but did you want to kill all these people? These mass murder was created by you or by something else? I thought that you wanted to kill these people. You want to have all these happening. And Eren is saying, I tried multiple times to change the story, but I couldn't. So, are you telling me that you didn't want to exterminate these people? But why did you convince Grisha to exterminate the race family? Because of the visions that I had from the future. But then, if you saw these visions from the future and you tried to change these things, it means that you also tried to not convince Grisha to kill the race family. Then you saw that anyway this story went on the same way, so you tried to convince Grisha of the contrary but didn't change. How many times? Tell us the times you have changed this story. Try to tell us when you tried to change this story. Did you try to change it when you saved Bertold, but maybe in another time you tried to change the story, you didn't save Bertold? Did you try to change the story the moment you condemned the race family being killed by Grisha, and some other times you changed the story? You tried to change the story another time in which you suggested Grisha not to do so, and you saw that anyway the things went on. I mean, tell us when you tried to change the story. Did you try to change the story when you tried to go to Liberio by yourself? But even in this case, you went there by yourself. And you caused a damage to your friends because your friends were coming to save you, but by coming to save you they created an attack, and they also risked their lives. Look at Sasha, for example, and look at all the others, because based on that attack that they made, they caused these people from the other side of the ocean to get ready to have a counterattack later, and we didn't know if they could survive or not. So, as you can see, this character is incoherent. Even if he thinks that he moves forward and he has this principle well written that everyone can understand what he wants to do, this character is incoherent. And he's representing exactly human beings, because we are incoherent. Sometimes we can think one thing and then we change our mind and we think of something else, and then we decide to change our mind one more time, and then we decide that now maybe it's better to do this, but then we do the exact opposite of what we did maybe one day before. I think that more than saying that Eren was a slave of freedom, Eren was a slave of these memories from the future. Eren was a slave of convictions. Eren was a slave of these instinct. I don't think that he is a slave of freedom. No, because if he was a slave of freedom, if a person is a slave of freedom, he is not only searching for his freedom, but he is also searching for the freedom of others indistinctively. Because freedom, he is a slave of the concept of freedom. And if I am a slave of freedom, I am thinking about freedom in general. I am not thinking about my freedom only. So that's why he is incoherent even in this case. Okay, he wants freedom, and he's also saying, oh, this is freedom, but this is freedom regarding his persona, not regarding everyone's freedom. But it's incoherent because of this. Because if you stand for freedom, you stand for the concept of freedom. And this concept of freedom not only regards you, but it regards everyone. So that's why I'm saying that Eren is an incoherent character, a complex character based on this incoherence, and that's why I love this character, because I don't like when the characters are too obvious that you can't that you can understand everything that they think from day one. No, I prefer complex characters like him that you have to try to do your best to understand, even if most of the times it's not easy to understand him because of this incoherence. Ma no, no, no. In fact, even what he's saying now to Armin is wrong. For what I told you now, when he says, Armin, you're right, I am a slave of freedom. Ma no, ma not at all. Not at all. Eren was a slave of other things. Eren was a slave of his convictions. Eren was a slave of his instinct. Eren was a slave of his incoherence. He is not a slave of freedom. Not at all. Now more than ever, I um, modify my opinion about this because not only we have the chance to see this ending, but because the more that we go on with this dialogue, the more we see the incoherence of this character. If you are a slave of freedom, you don't think about your freedom only. You think about everyone's freedom. And he was a slave of freedom, but then he didn't even know if what he was trying to do could have saved his friends. How he can be a slave of freedom at this point, or how can he be a person that cares about his friends if somehow by trying to modify the story he didn't know if they could survive? And that's a selfishness. That's when a character gives priorities to his feelings, to his convictions. I mean, no, 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 no. Or maybe even in this case, when he is saying, Armin, you're right. I am a slave of freedom. He is just trying to convince himself that he is a slave of freedom. But I think that Eren had just to take his responsibility about what he did, and that's it. That's the things that matter here. It's an excuse. I mean, it's a way to justify yourself to say, okay, Armin, I am a slave of freedom. I did what I did for freedom, for your freedom, not for other people's freedom. Because we could say the same from Marley's point of view. Because if we understand the story based on these 2000 years, King Fritz wanted to enslave even Marley. I mean, King Fritz was the one who wanted to conquer lands as much as for what happened to Ymir. I mean, we saw how King Fritz was and his behavior. So he is descending also from King Fritz, a person who tried to conquer others. He didn't want the freedom for others. I mean, King Fritz didn't want the freedom from others. Ymir was becoming an slave. He was sorry. Ymir was becoming a slave, but at the same time, thanks to her actions, she was enslaving others later, that is, the descendants that was coming from her. So, as you can see, freedom, but your own freedom. So, at this point, if you think always about your freedom, you don't even care about your friends. Because if for your freedom you have to assist to your friends' deaths, let's pretend, I mean, let's fake that this happened. This means that you didn't care about your friends because your freedom was more important than your friends. That's what I'm saying when he is completely incoherent with what he says and what he does. Because he was searching maybe for his freedom, but on the other side, Marley could have said the same. Because when Marley was attacked by King Fritz 2000 years before, they could have also have their perspective of the story, and maybe by doing what they did, even if it was something detestable, I mean something wrong for sure, but they were searching their freedom by confining these demons in paradise, by put these Eldians based on their convictions that they were demons into these confined areas based on what they have experienced. So, Eren, why are you condemning Marlians? Okay, that they put the people in these confinement zones when you are the first one who says that for his freedom he is exterminating others. You can't be a slave of freedom. This sentence should have been different. Eren should have said, "You are right, Armin. I am a slave of my freedom." But when you say, Armin, you're right, I am a slave of freedom, it's too general. If you put it in this way, you should have searched for everyone's freedom. Is, in your opinion, everyone's freedom the loss of this Titan power? I mean, is your concept of a freedom and something you wanted to reach something you wanted to reach because you thought that by exterminate by taking away these Titans' power, people could have felt free from it, free from even this imagination that people are considered as demons? Yeah, but anyway, the way in which you're trying to analyze this story based on what Eren feels, it's all incoherent, sincerely. Um, and this incoherence is destroying him. I mean, these incoherence and these convictions are consuming him to a point that he doesn't even know what he's saying because one statement is not confirming the statement after. Uh, that's why I like characters like this, because they are complex. And when they are complex, the more they are complex, the more it's interesting to understand where the story goes. And the problem here is that Armin understands that he tried to save in Liberia a person that he didn't even had the chance to understand what he was doing. Because even for Eren, everything was completely confused. So at this point, if I was Armin, I would have said, "Okay, you said you are a slave of freedom, so you put us in danger all the time. And what kind of a slave of freedom you are?" If it was for me, I would have gone on with this last dialogue more and more and more to contrast Eren. But in fact, even Armin can't take it anymore because Armin, that represents a rationality, I wanted to underline this, can't stand it anymore. He is giving up. I mean, here you see that even a rationality, he's stepping back and he's saying, "Oh no, look, I can't take it anymore." This is, and in fact, he's saying this is absolutely crazy. Because if you embody rationality, even a rationality can't make a logical statement now. I mean, even a rationality can't find a logical meaning of what Aaron is saying. So Armin, that is representing rationality, and tries his best to understand Aaron's intentions in front of these incoherence, in front of these proposes based on incoherence, in front of these convictions that are changing the more that we go on with this dialogue. And even Armin says, but look, what are you saying? This is crazy. We can't understand you anymore. But at this point, Armin probably is even asking himself, did I understand it from the beginning, or it was just my illusion? Because at this point, Armin had an idea of Eren that was absolutely the contrary of what he's experiencing now. Here, Armin is in front of a person that doesn't even know what he's saying. Then at one time he's saying one sentence, and in the other time he's saying another one, and this sentence is not confirming this one, and this sentence. I mean, you feel completely devastated. So I understand Armin here that he's saying, look, it's completely crazy, this thing. And Eren is confirming all the mess, not only all the mess that he was causing, but also the mess that he has inside of his brain right now. And this is amazing because you understand that we started this story by being convinced. We also felt convinced of some things, and then everything that we were thinking was denied or was debunked. And we started this story with the conviction that Eren was pretty convinced about what to do. So we started with a season one where everything was pretty clear, and we also thought that we could stand on Eren's side because of his convictions. I will exterminate all the Titans, let's fight for humanity, etc., etc., etc. Oh, the more we went on with this story, the more we completely lost ourselves in this story too, trying to make an evaluation of this character that was completely opposed from that was completely opposite from the description of Eren's character that we had in season one. Here we have a mess. This brain is a complete mess. We don't understand him. But even Armin, who is supposed to be his best friend, and he's trying to understand what's going on, can't understand him. And if he, that is supposed to be his best friend, can't understand him, try to imagine if we can understand him. I feel myself as Armin now. I don't understand. You're saying it can't be undone. Look, Armin is still trying to understand something here because we don't understand. If you wanted to do this for real, if you were managed or controlled by this destiny that can write this story or over and over again, if you are a slave of freedom, if you tried to rewrite the story because you wanted to save us as your friends, or because you tried to stop the rambling, you too, and you didn't want 80% of humanity being exterminated. I mean, we don't understand. What do you want to do, Aaron? This isn't a solution at all, for sure. For sure. We can't find a solution here. What? He's saying, what? You can't have a war if there are no people? Exactly. But now we go back to Zeke's plan, where he wanted to let the Eldians not be able to procreate, to go on, so there are no more Eldians, and there are no more wars. Eren tried to do the contrary. Let's exterminate all the people on the other side, so there are no people, there is no war. Both of them, they were super stupid. I mean, for all the things that I told you already. As much as Eren was stupid believing that by saving Paradise only, Paradise would have never had the problems later that could have caused maybe inner wars. And Zeke was stupid to believe that by not letting aliens procreate anymore, the rest of the world couldn't create other wars based on other problems. I mean, this is too childish as a thought, too pathetic. All this is pathetic, and definitely defines what Eren is. It doesn't matter now if he says it or out loud or not, but that's how he is. It's like a bad joke. Who would take it seriously? But in fact, there is nothing serious here. Because if something was serious, first of all, he was never being so confused. And second of all, he would have never been such incoherent. It would have been serious, right? So, I mean, I feel Armin because throughout all this time, Armin tried his best. Tried his best. But as I could tell you, this is a deep contrast between instinct and rationality. These two sides that are confronting, but one desperately tries to find the logic in everything that instinct is saying, but instinct doesn't have any sort of logic. Instinct represents instant feelings that can't be explained. It doesn't matter if they are positive or negative feelings, but everything is instinct and instant because it's happening in that moment, that maybe that moment can cause all the effectiveness of the consequences. But this is all a mess. This is all a mess. And I understand Armin because after he tried so many times to excuse him, to try to find an explanation, to ask him directly what are his intentions and why he did this, why he did that. The result of this dialogue is resignation, pure resignation. As if they are, it's like as if they are talking two different languages and they can't match because one he's speaking a language with kanji, for example, and one is speaking a language with the West world alphabet, let's say. That's the same thing. Two people who maybe yes had a great feeling for each other, but they speak two different languages and they can't communicate. Same, but in the moment Armin is having this collapse because Armin, he tried, but now he is completely hopeless. Let's say he is crying a lot. He's trying to push to shake Eren while he's saying these things, but in this moment of hopeless hopelessness, sorry, Eren is opening his eyes and he is hearing that what the rationality is saying to him is that everything was nonsense. That all that was happening is a pure nonsense. And I liked this moment. I mean, even if other people are condemning this moment, I like it on the other side because we should see this dialogue as an acquirement of knowledge and a moment in which the main character is gaining, regaining for a few seconds consciousness. That doesn't mean, that doesn't exclude what happens later, because Eren was firmly convinced that Armin would have never regained his memories until the moment in which he was dead. But at the same time, as much as he is confused throughout all that time, he has for one moment a moment of lucidity, a moment that he could sense rationalism and or rationality. And I think that this is coherent. I mean, we saw throughout this dialogue all the times in which you could sense somehow Eren, as the Eren we knew in the first seasons, and then he was going back to this confusion, and then he had another moment, instant moment, in which he could reflect his feelings for real, and then again confusion. I mean, there is a roller coaster in this dialogue, but as much as when it happens at the beginning of this dialogue, when he is confronting Armin and he's releasing his feelings, when he believes that by um, by controlling Bertold to be saved and controlling Dinah to move, and he's expressing his sadness for that decision. As much as when he is also saying things about Mikasa, in which you see that Eren is regaining this consciousness for a few seconds, and then he goes confused again and again and again. Now it's like as if he goes back to one of these moments. So this dialogue is an alternation between confusion, that is confusion 90%, and those 10% of moments in which you see Eren that it seems to go back to how he was supposed to think, and then he goes back to this confusion, and then again, and then this confusion. So Eren was collecting confusion for most of his existence, let's say. But there were these moments of clearness of mind in which he could open this door of consciousness that then was closed again by these convictions that he had. So while maybe even in this dialogue you see that he's trying to convey his feelings and he's opening his heart, and those are the clear moments of his mind where his mind is clear and transparent and you can detect his feelings coherently. For the 90% of this dialogue, everything is incoherent. You don't understand anything. But while now rationality that is embodied by Armin's character is talking, and this rationality is telling him, look, man, we don't understand anything. We don't understand what you wanted to do. And especially when you think, when there is no people, there is no war. But look, even before human beings were able to exist, there were other creatures before that were fighting. And when they were fighting, it was like as if these creatures were creating wars, right? So it's pointless what you say. Even when Zeke was explaining that life was struggling to exist, to survive, to multiply, to procreate, to go on living. when that life is struggling, it means that there is an antagonist in that moment that life is struggling, that makes things impossible, that makes things hard to happen. So even in that case, it's a sort of contrast, it's a sort of a fight, it's a sort of a war. So what Eren is saying now is super intricate, super incoherent, super stupid. And in fact, even Armin says, Eren, it's true that there is no end in sight for this conflict. And Eren is looking like this. And I am sure the hell we went through has happened over and over again. So let's open a bracket. Um, Here, Armin is referring, of course, to the hell they have experienced altogether, that Eren saw multiple times. So for him, it was a constant pain, and it was as if it was 10 times up, 10 times more than the effect that it can have if you live it once. So try to imagine a person that lives that experience over and over again, and the amount of pain that he or she is feeling can't be compared to the person who's living that experience one time. Okay, that's for sure. But I think Armin refers even to all of the things that happened even before Eren's existence. But because even if, from Eren's point of view, he was never being free because his existence was already projected even before happening, and Eren would have been born because of this destiny, trying to create this story that is pre-written. So Eren had to be born anyway. So there was no way that he could escape from this destiny of being born too. But I think that Armin refers even to all the conflicts that for 2,000 years went on and on and on, because these conflicts couldn't end because of these distinction. On one side, the Eldians, on the other side, the Marley and the rest of the world. So these conflicts went over and over. So he is defining even this thing as hell, personal hell regarding Eren, but even hell in general, because for 2,000 years there was this sort of slavery of a pain that took all these generations to recreate this hell over and over and over again. But we need to think that despite it all, one day we can eventually come to understand one another. That's exactly what Niccolo, what Sasha's dad, what all these, even Mueller, even Magath. I mean, the army is saying exactly the words that not only he said, but even other characters tried to say. That is the most important thing. If you are condemned in hell, and hell is the environment that you have created around you, or that you have lived because of this environment, and if you accept this hell and you don't try to contrast it, this hell will never end. If, on the other hand, you try to contrast this hell, it might work, it might not work, whatever. But if after the hell you experience, you also try to find a way that doesn't regard your persona only, but you think that even other people, if you perpetrate this hell, can experience exactly the same hell you felt, So you have these sort of knowledge, especially you who had even the power to see what was happening in the future. If you tried to modify the story in that way, things would have worked. But, and I close the bracket, but there is one thing that Armin doesn't understand. That is, that if Eren survived, the Titan's power would have gone on somehow. While by Eren being killed, the Titan's power is over. So maybe that was a certain way, from Eren's point of view, to delete this hell, starting from this thing. And then Armin and all the others would have cooperated with him by dying to create this other exit from hell. But this is wrong, because while you decided to erase the Titan's power, you also condemned 80% of people, of humanity's of humanity in general. So it's impossible that you can find exit from hell by causing other hell. It's like in physics, minus and minus, they create a plus. Okay, so the more you increase this negativity, you create more and more and more and more. So you add more hell to the hell that is already pre-existing. But if you try to do the opposite thing, then it's a chance to modify things for real. So I think that Armin is giving him even this solution called hope, that if there is a hope, there is eventually one day in which all this hope can create a result, right? And until there is that hope, to change something for good, and until this hope is also reflected by words, and it's reflected by actions that can confirm that there is this hope, then things are different. Then you are detaching yourself from hell. But if you experience hell, and then you think that by deleting this hell you want to join hell, it's incoherent. It's something that doesn't make sense. And that's why I'm saying this character is pure incoherence. By the way, when Armin is saying one day, and Eren is opening his eyes, and maybe even in that moment he is seeing a scene from the future after his death, that can give him hope to believe that one day these things that Armin is saying can come true. I wanted to divide this opinion now in two ways. That means maybe he is realizing in that moment that what Armin is saying is totally correct, and it's even having this lucidity, this clear mind in that moment that helps him to understand that everything that he did was wrong. But then this moment of clear mind ends in the moment this vision, in the moment in which he is not talking to Armin anymore, and he goes back to his convictions as a roller coaster of emotions, as much as I told you before. Or Eren, in that moment, this is just my opinion, or Eren in that moment saw that from the future the boy and the dog. And if he saw the boy and the dog, probably he thought, oh, wait, okay, Armin is telling me that one day, but if I have this vision of the boy and the dog happening so many, many, many years after, it means that what I'm doing is right. And it means that if I perpetrate doing what I'm doing, that boy and that dog scene will become true, will become a reality. Later, I mean, not today for sure, but in other in the live streaming dedicated to the boy and the dog, I will tell you exactly what I think. And in fact, I told you even that scene will require an entire live streaming because I think it's one of the most powerful post credit scenes. So it will take time. But do you understand what I mean? if if it can seem as if Eren, while Armin is talking, is gaining consciousness about what he is and in the position in which he is in, and all the bad things that he did, so he is incorporating rationality in that moment, and he is putting away his instinct for a few seconds. But then he is always englobed by this instinct again, and then he went on by doing what he did. Instinct and convictions. On the other hand, I was thinking, what if Eren, while Armin is talking about one day in the future, he is opening his eyes like that because in that moment he is also seeing a vision from the late future, in which he sees this boy and girl, sorry, boy and girl, boy and the dog, and in that moment, he believes, I saw this thing from the future, this boy and this dog entering the tree, and blah 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 blah. So or maybe he saw even something after the boy and the dog. We don't know, but anyway, it may be by having that vision in the moment Armin is talking, is saying, okay, anyway, what I'm doing is right. Okay, so I have to go on doing what I have to do, and in fact, he's terminated 80% of humanity because he believes that terminating that 80% of humanity makes the path of this story go in the right way until we will be able to reach the boy and the dog that maybe can revolutionate everything. This is just my external opinion about this. But you see that while Armin is talking about the future, Eren is opening his eyes as if he is having a vision, as much as Grisha was having a vision while he was having that scene with Carla, Eren, and Mikasa. And Eren was talking about the Chosahedan, and that's why Grisha said, when I come back, I will show you the basement. So that instant moment, even Armin, before talking to Annie, do you remember in that scene that we will see after this dialogue, he is like, and then Annie says, Armin, and he goes back to reality. Eren is having this same moment, so I don't know if he is having a vision of the future, from the future. And now no one will have any faith, not even in something as small as that. But as you can see, even if the ideals can be small or big, the important thing is that they exist. Because until they exist, they can mean a lot. If there is one ideal only, okay, then then it would be pointless when there is one option only. But the fact that there are people who have a faith or they have a hope that things can change even thanks to their contribution to the story itself makes understand, first of all, how important human beings can be, even if they think that most of the times they are meaningless. They don't have any sort of a power to change things. But at the same time, the power that these human beings have, thanks to their hope that things can change, can influence others and create, in this case, a chain of benevolent feelings and benevolent actions instead of creating always a chain of hatred. That makes quite a long, that makes a sense and makes even understand that it doesn't the most important thing is not the quantity but the quality. And even what you see after Eren's death makes you understand that the little steps can create a great and first step to change, to the change that has to be done. Exactly, the one lesson that they are left is that they must kill or be killed, but we should give them an alternative so they can choose. Okay, if you have a one choice only, and if you have a one thing only to think, then you are forced to go on with this way of thinking. But if you give people multiple ways to choose something, for sure they will debate, for sure there will be discussions, but there is even a multiple way to see the same thing, to see how we can modify things. There is not just one way that is the negative way of changing things. There is even a small percentage that in the future it can become relevant and can turn the situation upside down. So we should give people more options so these people are able to choose, but all options matter. It doesn't matter the percentage. Even if this small percentage of people who have a hope has 2 percentage, maybe in the future it can become 20 because of the influence that these 2 percentage of people can influence thanks to their actions others, future generations, etc., etc., etc. So hell has always had a counterpart. But if you don't create that counterpart, hell exists, and hell only exists. But we know that in nature there is not a space for that. There is not a place that is ordered by one thing only. No, for the law of the opposites, things have to be multiple, more than one. So that's why I'm saying that what Army is saying right now is totally correct. We don't have to give a population one option only that means mm, killing others, or being killed. We don't have to give them one version of the story only. We have to give them the opportunity to see that if that hope was put into actions, aliens living in paradise saved 20% of humanity. That means going beyond their convictions that aliens are demons only, and at the same time let them believe that instead of conflicts we can talk. That's all. And you're saying you did all this for us. I mean, yes, this is incoherence. This is pure incoherence too, because Eren now wants to have his revenge, and at the same time, he is saving his friends who don't want who don't want hell. They don't want a revenge, but they wanted to keep going on talking. And it's another vision of the story. It's another option that they are granting the people from coming from in the new generations, but even the people who survived. I mean, a person who, with his actions, promotes hell, but also promotes heaven. I mean, a person who is asking for his revenge by creating more hell wants to save people who don't promote hell. It's like as if Lucifer one day, if Lucifer exists, who cares? But I'm just saying, it's like as if Lucifer one day keeps going. No, sorry. It's like as if Lucifer promoting his dominion, that is a hell, says that he loves God. He loved God, but then he descended to hell. But Lucifer can't promote heaven if he wants his revenge. Eren is doing this same thing and it's incoherent. Eren promotes revenge based on what he experienced and he wants to exterminate everyone, but then he promotes his friends who don't like hell. Pure confusion here, pure confusion. That's why Armin is saying, and you did all like you did for us. I mean, you exterminated all these people for us who don't want the extermination. Crazy. Crazy. Uh, Let me check for a second Kruger's speech. 1 second, okay? Because that's the point here. I mean, wait a second. Okay, sorry. Um, okay, let me go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. No, wait. Okay. 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 Ah! Oh my. Now wait. Wait. I need to read these sentences. They were thrown into the ocean, and then Kruger says a sentence that Armin has always said, the sentence of the book. It occurs to me that I may need to define the word ocean. Uh, the ocean is a vast body of salt water that covers 70% of the world's surface. This is Eren talking, based on what Armin told him from the book. But then he says one thing to Grisha, that is, yes, uh, and that is what Eren did. Okay, I mean Eren Kruger and Eren Yeager, they have so many things in common. Okay, not only the name, but they even made the same things. Even Eren was a Fukuro. Okay, I mean he was an owl in his experience in Liberio. Okay, even by saying. Grisha said, you posed as a Marlian and infiltrated the public safety office. Eren infiltrated in Liberion, in Marley, and spent his 4 years in Marley. Same thing, huh? Same thing. But that's why I'm reaching that point. Wait. Ah! He said that how you could pass the test, the blood test, to be recognized as a Marlian. All you need is, Kruger says, all you need is one doctor willing to fudge the results. That is the same thing that Eren did when he was sitting on that bench and he was going inside that clinic because he had one leg yes and one leg no, and Falco was there trying to talk to him. And do you remember there were doctors over there too, you know? In that case, Eren could maybe modify his blood while they were having that blood test by being the founding titan. But anyway, what I'm saying is that Eren Kruger and Eren Yeager, they have lots of things in common. Not only because Eren Yeager, through the memories from the future, is influencing Kruger and what he's saying, but even their experiences. And listen to these that I'm saying now. Eren Kruger contributed somehow to face death. That is Grisha's sister. As much as Eren Yeager, if we follow that vision of things, contributed to his mother's death by saving Bertold. So these two Eren, they have the same sort of a path, because even Eren Kruger was pretending to be a Marlian and somehow caused Grisha's sister's death, as much as Eren Yeager not only was influencing Grisha to kill the Race family, but also it was said in this episode that he prevented Bertold from dying. So Dinah Fritz was going that way. So as you can see, even in that case, guys, okay, when we will rewatch the story, I can tell you different things, because now we can see things in a different way, a more evident and extended way. But okay, let me go ahead with the Kruger for 1 second. Doctors make for excellent spies. Yes, even in this case, Falco for Eren, season 4, part 1, Falco was like a sort of a spy for him. I mean, he was working indirectly for Eren, doing what he had to do to reach his goal, to reach his friends through the letters. Oh, at least Grisha confirmed that he was worthless as a father, as a husband, and as a man, even before saying it to Zeke later. So he has always recognized from that moment how bad he was. Yeah, yeah. Maybe because you, Grisha, had to experience suffering, so you had a chance to build a plan based on the anger you felt. I mean, if you noticed, Kruger didn't intervene during the moment in which Dinah was transformed into a titan. He intervened, so Kruger could have saved even Dinah at that point. But no, because Dinah's death is useful for Grisha to feel so much pain, and that pain can cause lots of anger, and this anger can be used to have his revenges. So it's like as if these deaths are necessary to build or to feed this anger more and more and more. But Kruger didn't interfere. Well, you needed to remember that even Kruger has visions from the future because he's the Shingeki no Kyojin. So Eren, who in the present time is the Shingeki no Kyojin, did Eren Yeager influence Eren Kruger to not intervene while Dinah was transformed into Kyojin on purpose? So the story had to go in a certain way. And at the same time, there was the need of Dinah Fritz as a Titan at that moment of the story. So even that other trauma would have been caused because if Eren Kruger saved Dinah, both Dinah and both Dinah and Grisha could have reached the other side of the ocean. But if they reached it together, I mean, if they reached the paradise together, Eren couldn't have been born. Do you understand what I mean? So there was the necessity for Dinah to become a Titan and not reach paradise with Grisha together as a couple. Yeah, wait a second. She could have brought out the true power of the Titans if you hadn't covered up her lineage. But even in this case, if it went on like this, we couldn't reach this point of the story. But maybe this is what Armin is saying now. That is, Eren, you didn't listen, Eren Yeager. You didn't listen. You wanted to relive you tried your best to change your story. But maybe you tried your best to change your story, that story in the same way. That's why it couldn't work. Because you have always used the killing, revenge. That's why the story couldn't be have been modified because it was the same method used in a different way, but it always was always the same method. You have never heard, you have never want to listen to other options that were not based on killing, regrets, revenge. Maybe the story would have changed for real if you would have listened to something that doesn't regard hell. And even in this case, to Kruger, Grisha is trying to give him another option. He says, "Ma, if you left Dinah, she could have brought out the true power of the Titans if you hadn't covered up her lineage." Why? In fact, Grisha is asking him, why you didn't help all the others and you wanted to help me only? Eh, if he helped all the others, Eren Yeager wouldn't have been born. Why didn't you transform a few minutes earlier and save everyone else from becoming Titans? Because it was not a part of the story. But this could have made a difference in the story, maybe a positive difference, but it was not the option. Why did you stand there and allow that to happen to them? And that's why, guys, I'm saying in that case, Kruger was influenced by the visions of from the future. As much as Eren could influence Grisha at that time, was even Kruger influenced because of Eren's intentions at this point? It wasn't just them. I've cut the fingers off of thousands of subjects of Ymir. Yeah. Hmm. Ah! Eren Kruger is having the same, more or less the same experience Eren felt. And Grisha, by having the memories of Kruger, Eren, when he got the Shingeki no Kyojin, had also the experiences of Kruger. That were the same things that Eren took inspiration. Look, do you remember when Eren is asking Zeke about some sort of things because he tried to get inspirations from what Zeke said, or he was even asking confirmation to Zeke about these headaches that Mikasa could have had, to try to take inspiration from his thesis in front of her. Maybe Eren took inspiration even from Kruger's past from the memories Grisha collected about Kruger to create what he created. And but that the problem is that there was a repetition of things. And that's why things couldn't change because it was just a repetition of what he took inspiration from. Yeah, but even in this case, Kruger is saying, but I thought, but I believe that it was all to help Elia. The same thing that Eren is doing. I started rambling to help the aliens, to help Paradise. I did what I did because I killed lots of people. I killed the women. I killed the kids. I killed that. You see, I mean, Kruger is saying the same things that Eren did later. But I did it because I believe that it was all to help Elia. Same, same. He started the rambling. He killed lots of people to make this help Paradise. So you understand that Eren is also confused by these memories of the previous owners. We don't have to forget these. Even if he couldn't collect Kruger's memories, he could collect this dialogue between Kruger and Grisha, where Kruger was saying these things. And Eren was too childish to take inspiration from these things, thinking that he was doing. Ah, no, but now I have another way of thinking. If Eren can coexist through time, maybe when Kruger was the Shingeki no Kyojin and did what he did, was a way for Eren to try to change the story, but it didn't work through Kruger. Maybe this is already a moment in which Eren tried to change the story for the sake of Amika's Armin and all the others, but even in this vision, it didn't work. I mean, even in this case, it didn't work. That's why probably this is one of the times that Eren, by saying what he said, tried to change the story to see if the story went on in a certain way. It didn't go in that way. I'm giving you one last mission. This isn't for anyone else, only you. Eh, what a coincidence. Here we go. Here we go. That's what I said a few minutes ago. Look, I didn't even remember this statement from Kruger. If the events of that day, the day we first met, had never happened, and the day they first met, it was when Faye died, you never would have grown to hate Marley with such a great passion. Same, same. The most important thing was to feed this anger and transform it into hatred. But Eren makes this mistake. By repeating hell, you can't solve hell. You just make it double. So if you think that repeating hell can cause happiness or peace after, you are stupid. You are stupid. And probably not only Eren could influence Kruger with his thoughts from the future, but at this point now I'm believing the contrary. That Eren was influenced by what Kruger did and couldn't handle completely. No, actually, maybe Eren is influenced by Kruger's memory and he saw that he could make it because he could reach Grisha and he could have given him this power. So he said, oh, wait a second, I saw this memory from the past thanks to my father. Actually, Kruger was trying to change things. Open a bracket. No, he was not. Close the bracket. So let me take inspiration from what he did. Okay, let me um let me do certain things so I can think that I can solve those things. Let me make the decision to save Bertold and to let Dinah Fritz go over there as a Titan. As much as he did it, as much as he killed Grisha's sister and Grisha created this story until I was coming. Or maybe not that he was influenced or that he took inspiration, but he was confused by these concepts, by these ideas. And then probably he could think that that was the right thing to do because even Kruger inside Eren coexists. Not only because he is the previous Shingeki no Kyojin between his father, but because Grisha had all the memories of these moments. And they are coexisting. So it's like as if Kruger is still alive and can possess, let's say, Eren's body by coexisting. Even Grisha and Kruger, they were all unified with Eren. So the confusion starts even from these things. If Kruger had that idea, let's suppose that he was not influenced by Eren, okay? But if Kruger had that idea of doing what he did, and now he was coexisting with, thanks to the memories in Eren, he could influence even Eren and his actions. Uh, ah, is that why you chose me? It's a factor. Ah, wait. I could feel your rage towards all three, burning as though to engulf the entire world. Ma if Eren has the memories of Kruga or the memories of Grisha coexisting with his existence, coexisting through time, it's like as if Kruga is living in Eren by using his body. Kruger is thinking something like this at that time. Then we have the two options. Was Kruger be influenced by Eren from the memories of the future, and that's why he's saying this? Or that was he what he saw in Eren thanks to the memories of the past that he has thanks to his dad? Is hearing these things and is convincing himself about these things. And I felt the same rage once too. And even Eren is feeling not only the rage of Grisha at that time, when thanks to his memories, but he's living even the rage that Kruger had, that is confirming now. So let's think, it's like three rages in one, let's say, already. Can I be confused by having three people in one? Yes. Uh, uh, the father of Kruger was already part of this resistance. Uh, but he never accomplished anything. So here we see the story three times, because even Eren Yeager is feeling the disappointment in Grisha because he couldn't accomplish anything when he was trying to kill the race family, but then he refused. And he refused two times. First time when he found the refugee, I mean the shelter, and second time when he is going and he feels that he can do it, and then he's saying no, I can't. So ah, he saw even Kruger, so his dad being burnt alive, so he saw his dad dying in front of his eyes. Think about it. So Eren, in the mind of Eren, he saw his mother being killed like that. He saw Aunt Faye killed in that way by the dogs. He saw even Kruger's father, Kruger that he suffered because Kruger's father was burnt alive. Three experiences in one. Ah, here we go. Here we go. This is like a statement said by King Fritz of 2000 years before. I've lived by my vow to get revenge on Marley and to restore Eldia to power. Same as what King Fritz wanted to do, to have an Eldian empire and to enslave everyone, or to let Marley work for him. And same as Eren, that he wants to get revenge on Marley for what happened to him and restore Eldia to power. Even Grisha wanted the same thing. Was Grisha influenced by Kruger's memory as much as, I mean, in the moment in which he became the Shingeki no Kyojin? Yes, for sure. As much as Eren is influenced by those memories, even Grisha could influence Eren thanks to his memories. So these things that Eren is doing are starting from when exactly? Because even before Kruger, we don't know who was Kruger's previous owner. Okay, we couldn't see that. But since when is this hatred perpetrated? Since 2,000 years before. Anyway, but Grisha, let's say, was saved from this chain of repetition of memories had by Zeke. Kruger was saved by Zeke. So there was the need of another person who was having another wrong plan that was talking to Armin that represents rationality to let Zeke understand what was the important thing to think. And then Zeke was spreading these things to Kruger and Grisha, so they both understood that their revenge that they wanted to fulfill was stupid, because the most important thing in their lives were others that they had to pay attention on, not to revenge. And as soon as Zeke is doing these kind of things, think about it, to Kruger and to Grisha, of course, thanks to him, the rumbling will stop. But Eren is coexisting through time. Even in the vision in which they are having now the dialogue with Armin, he is coexisting. So can he have a moment of confusion now and think that he is pathetic because that's what happened even with Kruger and Grisha when Zeke talked to them? In my opinion, yes. Why? Because even if this thing is happening temporarily speaking, the dialogue between Eren and Armin is happening before we reach the Eren's death. Is happening even before Armin and all the others took the flying boat to reach him. So it's happening before Zeke is changing their minds, Kruger and Grisha's minds, let's say, to let them rest in peace and cooperate to all the others so they can stop the rumbling. But we don't need to forget that the time for Eren coexists. And at the same time, it's always Armin who is opening the eyes of the others. He is opening the eyes to Zeke, and in fact, Eren and Zeke, they are having the same facial expression when they hear Armin talking about certain things. And Armin was able, thanks to Zeke later, to awake even these others, previous owners, by saying that they were focusing too much on this revenge, but this revenge couldn't take them anywhere because they were trying to fulfill their revenge by feeding this anger more and more instead of decreasing it. They were adding revenge on this anger. So it was like trying to save hell with other hell, but it's impossible. So what I'm saying is that when Armin is talking to Zeke and Zeke is talking to these other previous owners, it's normal that Eren now has a destabilization, let's say, because that thing happened. And even if the dialogue between Eren and Armin is happening later, for Eren time coexists. So he could even realize that Armin could let Zeke change his mind and could let other previous owners change his mind, because in the present moment we are living this dialogue that it's in the past. For Eren, it's coexisting with the present and future. So for him, there is no difference. So is it normal at this point that Eren is having some sort of epiphany in this dialogue? Absolutely yes. Because as much as for what happened to Kruger and Zeke, that they could rest in peace because of what they have heard from Zeke, maybe now Eren feels pathetic and feels in some sort of way because he is experiencing this dialogue that Armin is having with him. And it has an effect, a partial effect, because anyway, he couldn't let his feelings rest completely in peace, because his convictions are more important than what Armin says. Even if what Armin says could shake him a little bit and let him recognize some things, that doesn't mean anything. Because anyway, this dialogue, even if for Eren time coexists, but this dialogue belongs for us to the past. So even if he's recognizing these things that he is already dead, because he's already dead, we don't have to forget that when Armin and Eren are having this dialogue, Eren is already dead. So it's like as if now Eren is having this dialogue with Armin, that even if it's happening in the past, and for Eren time coexists all three together, it's like as if Eren is already dead. And he's having the same dialogue that Armin was having with Zeke, and Zeke was having with Kruger, Grisha, and all the others that were already dead. Same! Same. That doesn't mean, anyway, that Eren's actions were not fulfilled till the end as he wanted. Because even for Kruger, it was like this. Even for Grisha, it was like this. They ended their existence as much as they wanted. But what we are having now as a dialogue between Eren and Armin, you can see it as a limbo, as if we are in a dimension where time coexists, because that dimension is created by Eren. It doesn't exist, materialistically speaking. As much as the dimension that Eren created for Mikasa to make her dream come true, partially true, all these things are coexisting through time, because even for Mikasa, that dimension happened in her mind after Eren asked her if it was a family or if it was something else. But anyway, but anyway, that dimension was coexisting through time, because Mikasa says in the moment she wakes up, I don't think I belong here. It makes you understand this coexistence of time that derives from Eren's power. But the reality, Kruger is saying, but the reality of what I have done amounts to cutting off my people's fingers and kicking them over this wall to become titans. By playing my role with such dedication, I was able to protect my identity up until today. But Kruger is Eren Yeager. And that's why Eren Yeager failed. Because what Eren Kruger did was wrong. And in fact, he couldn't proceed, let's say, because then the power went to Grisha, and even Grisha made the wrong things. And that's why already for the second time it was wrong. And then Eren Yeager arrived, but he did exactly the same things that the previous owner did, so it was a failure for sure. And even Kruger was doing the exact thing that Eren Yeager did, playing a role with such dedication. And in fact, Eren played a role following his convictions. They were so dedicated, well followed. And in fact, these took him to collect lots of regrets. And Kruger is saying that to protect his identity, he did what he did. To protect his friends, Eren Yeager played the role of the one that has to be killed, and he believed in these things with such dedication, but I would also say with such confusion, with such incoherence, more than dedication. But the story repeats for this because we are always repeating the same things. And when Eren became the Shingeki no Kyojin, from the moment he becomes the Shingeki no Kyojin, and in season one we didn't understand the power of the Shingeki no Kyojin. We waited 4 seasons to understand this power. But even if we understood the power of the Shingeki no Kyojin in season 4, anyway, the power of the Shingeki no Kyojin was activated in the moment Eren Yeager became the Shingeki no Kyojin. That's why I'm saying that Eren matured some situations that he was experiencing, even in the wrong way, probably, because he was already influenced as a Shingeki no Kyojin by the memories of all the others before him. And this confusion derives from this. Absolutely. Okay, guys. So for the moment, I wanted to stop here with this live streaming. I come back in a couple of hours. I come back in 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours. So please stay tuned and keep on watching because today, finally, we will end this dialogue between Eren and Armin. And I will prepare another thumbnail based on what I wanted to reach. I really hope that I will be able to reach it today. But as you can see, there are so many things that I have to analyze as much as I wanted to finish this Kruger's dialogue that affects exactly what's happening later when Eren says that he is pathetic. So stay tuned and keep on watching. See you in a couple of hours with another live streaming. And thank you so much. Bye. See you later. See you later. Yes. See you later in a couple of hours. Bye. See you. Thank you.